Welcome to the Liberty Insider. This is the program bringing you news, views, discussion, analysis and up-to-date information on religious liberty events in the United States and around the world. My name is Lincoln Steed, editor of Liberty Magazine, and my guest on the program is attorney Alan Reinach, executive director of the
Church-State Council.
Church-State Council. I was hesitating, but
celebrating our 50th anniversary next year.
I remember the anniversary discussion. So,
yeah.
As with Liberty Magazine, Liberty, which I edit, has been published continuously now since 1906.
Okay.
A lot older than I am and you. On one level, continuity and history is great, but the sad fact is that we're living in such rapid change that something that existed a decade or so ago is passé, and something we have today may have only been as new as 9/11. Mm-hmm. The world has changed since 9/11. I remember reading I read a quote from Le Monde magazine, the French news magazine. I remember reading right after 9/11 this statement. It said, we have reached the point, it said, where the very idea of freedom, relatively new, is in the process of disappearing and being replaced by its polar opposite, that of a global terror of security.
A terror of security.
Yeah.
Well, in my view, we lost the war on terrorism the minute we responded to 9/11 and called it a war on terrorism, because the whole point of the attack was not simply a destruction of physical property or even a destruction of lives. It was to alter the structure of society, which we have done. We have caved in. We no longer put freedom as the first priority. Security, the national security state, now trumps freedom.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, and it's very unfortunate. One example that I've often given talking to groups about this is from World War II. I wasn't born then, but I've read much about and seen many videos of...
Your kids don't think you were born then? My kids are quite convinced that I was a contemporary of Moses.
Dinosaur, yeah. No, we're dinosaurs in the eyes of a 12-year-old or thereabouts.
A teenager.
Yeah, but you know, there's plenty of visual evidence still with us from World War II and not Germany, but Britain under the German Blitz. You know, for several, I think it was nearly 2 months, but certainly weeks on end, the entire German Air Force, bombers, fighters and the lot, came over a little channel, 26 miles, I think the English channel is. They came across the channel and they bombed the heck out of London. Right. It was massive destruction. Then Hitler sent the vengeance weapons, the buzz bomb, a pulse jet powered guided missile, and then the V2s that Iraq still uses. You know, the Scud is a V2. They were relatively modern weapons raining down on London. I have never read anywhere, never heard anything. There's nothing in the record that says England's or even London's viability was ever threatened, right? And here, 2 buildings, 3, let's give the benefit of the third one that was taken down in World Trade Center 3. 3 buildings go down in one of our many cities, and it's like our existence is on the line. Not to denigrate, you know, the tens of thousands of people that died.
Look,
oh, sorry, that's not even 10, 3,000
3,000 people.
But as far as threatening our way of life, as the president said, it didn't even come close.
The politicians know that the most powerful weapon in their arsenal is fear. The politics of fear is one of the most destructive elements in our nation today. Yeah. If anybody cares about freedom, the first thing that they should do is resist the politics of fear, call it out for what it is, and oppose it, because it's fear that has almost completely destroyed our freedoms.
It's true. And then President Bush is as culpable as any, but ironically at the same time, he said some things that support what you say. Go about your shopping, do business as usual. We should have clung to normality and legally to the protections that have seen the United States through centuries of a relative security and protection of the rights of individuals and so on.
Well, now through the revelations of Edward Snowden and the media that have picked up some of the documents that he has unearthed,
and we now know we don't need to make a judgment about whether he personally did the right thing.
It's not about him.
But the information that came out is very revealing.
But this is stuff that we have long suspected. And, you know, I was trying to look at, well, what's really the bottom line of all of this? The bottom line is you're only free as long as you don't matter. Because as soon as you matter to somebody, everything you do and say is being scrutinized. Yeah. And there is no hiding from the cameras that are everywhere. You know, they can listen. You have a cell phone in your pocket, doesn't matter if it's on or off. Everywhere. They can listen to your conversation.
Your car has an inbuilt GPS, not the GPS on the dash,
right?
But it's in there. Your cell phone, the satellites overhead can scan you. And I spoke to a government computer expert recently. He pointed out that there's a type of side-reading radar that can actually see inside your house. I mean, there literally is no escape. Now, these things are not in themselves, I keep maintaining, pernicious. Technology is providing these tools. But for any government or any system to readily then sort of put these into use is quite startling in my view.
In prophetic terms, we talk about the United States being founded as a republic, as a Protestant and Republican nation, and eventually repudiating every principle of our Constitution. And sovereignty in this nation, at least in theory, derives from the people, not the state. But we have turned this whole thing inside out. As soon as we have a national security state, a national security apparatus, and we have a huge sector of our foreign policy and our public policy being decided in secret, we no longer have a republic. We no longer have a government where the people have any semblance of control over the way our nation conducts itself.
I know, and you and I read many articles, you know, analyzing this, and they point out very correctly that often military operations, often relationships between countries are hampered when things are all out in the open. There's a necessity of you know, a country to keep these secrets. Well, that might be true in that realm, but as you just pointed out, for a free and open society to survive, it has to truly be open.
Right.
Once you allow the secrecy, and what comes with it is non-accountability.
Exactly. And so, you know, one article we've been reading has to do with the billions, hundreds of billions of dollars we've been spending on the national security apparatus and how much of it's being wasted. There's no accountability, and contractors are buying, you know, influence and making contracts worth millions and millions of dollars, and whether they're delivering anything for their money.
Well, this is in one regard, we hope it's being wasted. But we're all being watched, and you know, I saw something recently where an ex-security employee was being interviewed, and the interviewer made the comment. They said, "Why should I have to worry if I'm doing nothing wrong?" And he said something that resonated with me. I mean, I suddenly saw it. He says, just remember, you are not the one that gets to define what is wrong, right and wrong. So it's all and we saw this, and I'm not making any connection between the West or United States in particular and communism, but under the communist system, where there was ongoing surveillance, and I went to, I remember in Bulgaria in particular, seeing, they were actually uniformed, but they were called security services. They were going around with little black briefcases into every home, every business, checking every day, keep updating the records.
Okay.
You know, they had that. Where you had that, they were collecting innocuous information, but if suddenly the authorities thought that person's up to no good, almost everything they were doing then fits within their matrix of suspicion. Like taking Patriot Act, the initial Patriot Act means they can surveil what you take out of a library. Well, if they think you're a terrorist and they look in the library that you took out, as many people did after 9/11, took out a book on Islam,
right,
they've got a developing interest in radical Islam.
Right.
So the bad construction is put on it, and freedom is not served by this, nor is security, ironically.
There is an improper assumption, a false assumption, that we have to trade freedom for security. We need to debunk that myth. If we don't have freedom, then what difference does it make about security? Security for what? To be
what are we protecting?
Conformist, clones, doing our part in the global economy, good little consumers who keep their mouths shut, who consume mindless entertainment and don't have a thought or a thought worth thinking or a life worth living. Yeah. As soon as you have a thought that dissents from the global order, you're under suspicion. It is George Orwell come home to roost.
Yeah, I think at some point I'm going to have a program on George Orwell.
Read 1984. Read it often. Read Huxley. Read Brave New World. We're in a brave new world.
By the way, I discovered something. It's logical, but I'd never heard of it before. But in a number of countries, I think Iran in particular, they have banned Animal Farm. But you know why?
Why?
Because the main characters are pigs. Totally missing the real message there.
Yes,
although I don't really remember the pigs as being heroic figures of any degree, so they're condemned. But that's probably the one that the average person would be as well off to read. Animal Farm, it's often given to the children, but it's telling a very much a morality tale to warn people of totalitarianism and how it comes often under the guise of well, it says all animals are equal, but at the end some animals are more equal. Well, so some freedoms, all freedoms are important, but perhaps in the interest of security we'll shuffle that a little bit.
So I think, in the substance of this, what Americans are just beginning to realize is that the government is gathering all of the data on who you're calling, what you're saying. All of your emails are being stored up. If anybody wants to look at your life, they can read your emails, they can review your phone records, who you've associated with, your comings and goings, your shopping history. If you don't pay cash, anything that you do with credit, it's all an open book.
And again, it doesn't have to be anything wrong with what you're doing, but that's an intrusion. That's a violation of the compact of a free society, as long as there have been free societies, right?
Well, the whole point is to squelch dissent. That is.
Well, I don't know if it's the point, but that becomes the necessary end.
Look,
when you give any human being that power.
There's some very good analysis done. We've had two sort of protest movements since the economy took a hit back in 2008. On the conservative side, you had the Tea Party movement. On the liberal side, you had the Occupy Wall Street movement. The Occupy Wall Street movement was completely shut down by the political establishment, and that's been very well documented. It was closed down at one point, and it was closed down by the federal government. There was an FBI conference call with literally something like 45 city mayors to coordinate the shutdown of the Occupy movement. Now, the point is not whether you agree or disagree with, any message that was coming out. The point is that we live in a society where dissent is supposed to be permitted. We're supposed to protect free speech, where the government is not supposed to be acting to stifle
I'll come out
dissent.
with something that I've mentioned on this program before, because it gagged me. I just gagged when I heard of this about 10 years ago now. It's a great tradition in the United States of free speech that when any public official comes along, you could demonstrate, stick a placard up, or even if you're so inclined, call it out. Different people find it offensive, and I might find it offensive if I was a personage coming by, but it's a free society. But starting at about 10 years ago, free speech zones were established that were walled off areas, and they were sometimes miles from the location. We'll be back after a break to discuss this serious topic and then get on to some implications for religious freedom.